doesn't matter if it happens on a Sunday afternoon or a Monday night. Chances are the Bears are going to lose a game, and that they did, dropping the Monday Night Football showcase to the Minnesota Vikings here tonight, 30-12. Not even close. Didn't feel close from the get-go. And again, even more ways to shoot themselves in the foot did the Bears find tonight. Welcome into the Bear Report post-game reaction. I'm Steven Johnson. He's Zack Pearson. And Zack, same story, different day. A lot of the same stuff, just a couple new wrinkles that we haven't necessarily been used to for A, turning the ball over, and B, being stupid.
Man, it's the same stuff, man. Like right from the start, just not scoring in the first quarter, slow start in the game, turning the ball over, awful on third downs, bad on fourth downs, play calling's questionable, defense is giving up everything short, just right down the list, man. It's a it's a day that ends in Y, and it's the Bears for you, man. It's just that's what it is at this point.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Again, we talking about the third downs. I believe they didn't convert a third down until the fourth quarter tonight, which is never going to win you a game. They were lucky they were only down 2 scores at that point in time. And not only that, but again, the fourth down calls, as you mentioned, a questionable first fourth down call that resulted in a turnover. And then the next one, we had messaged a little bit back and forth during the game. It is clear as day that Roschon Johnson was sorely needed in specific situations here tonight. And that, for as well as DeAndre Swift did play, and we'll give him credit, he had his best game in over a month. Even though it was only 79 yards on the ground, he did add 1 catch for 10 yards through the air. Still, there is a clear thunder aspect to the run game that does not exist with the guys that were healthy tonight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Roschon's your big back. He's the guy they're going to lean on in those short yardage situations, the goal-to-goal situations. And, that first fourth down play, like, I'm fine going for it and being aggressive. You're on the road. You're out of the playoffs. You have nothing to lose. But first, you're pitching the ball to the left side, which is where your third-round rookie, who has been hurt all offseason, is making his first career start. He has a couple costly penalties in this game. You get stuffed. The second call right up the middle, pulling the left guard and running right up the middle was just, to me, mind-boggling. I would have liked some play action. Maybe cut the ball in Caleb Williams' hands if they could have. But, yeah, I think Swift has played well. He's been fine outside of the tackles. When he gets inside the tackles, he struggles. He gets in the end zone, and then Doug Kramer makes a mistake, and, there's 7 points off the board. It's just mental mistakes. I'd say mental mistakes, the lack of execution, talent at some positions. Nothing against Kieran Amagaji. He was hurt all offseason. The Bears drafted him hurt. They admitted They drafted him hurt. He's making his first career start. And right away, first drive, I think he gives up a pressure. Second drive, he gives up just an awful sack where I don't know how Jonathan Greener didn't get eight sacks this game. He went right by him, and Caleb Williams had no chance. Caleb Williams had played great. He didn't play awful, but he had no chance on that one. He's got a holding call when they get downward on the drive where Doug Kramer isn't eligible. He has another illegal man downfield call. I think he had another holding call or a false start. He was borderline unplayable tonight.
Yeah, there was a lot that just felt, I don't know if avoidable is necessarily the word. Again, with Amagaji, stepping in there at left tackle, did not get any time with the first team all week long. All of a sudden, Braxton Jones is saying, "I've got a concussion," a day before the game. I've never seen, like, did he hit his head, like, at home? Like, did he?
He was at practices all week. I mean, he was out there. We got to see 2 practices. He was there. who else? Jaquan reported his days later too.
Yeah.
Kind of this weird thing with concussions and reporting them late. And I'm not a doctor or anything, but like, doesn't that seem kind of odd? Like they've had like 2 or 3 of those this year.
Yeah, it does. And, I think just based on the level of tenacity that this team has played with over all these past couple weeks, I think that they're um you don't want to say like, okay, I'm not feeling well, I'm just going to sit this one out, but it kind of feels that way to an extent, that there are situations in play that make you wonder, is this team giving its all? For and what does it really say about the medical staff for
Yeah.
this team? I mean, that's the other thing, is that you see this and you think, okay, that's a little bit out there.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of sums up this whole year overall. That it's everything's out there, and nothing really is making too much sense for what this team is doing. You mentioned the Doug Kramer thing. How many times has he played fullback this year on the goal line? I mean,
Right.
what is he doing?
Uh,
There's nothing in this situation that he shouldn't know what to do. And here we are. And it was just one thing after another. Not only did we have the ineligible by Kramer, but then the ball gets moved back again, and then again, and then it's like it's a circus
that was
at
what
this
was
point.
that that was a 13-0 game. They get the
Yeah,
touchdown. A total. I mean, I don't think the Bears win, but that's a
it's a
totally different game.
game.
Yeah. And the Vikings, dude, I mean, the Vikings for 3 quarters were giving the Bears every opportunity to go down and take this game and win, just like they did in the 4th quarter of the last game. Like they get
Exactly.
the interception. Justin Jefferson drops a pass. You don't see, that's his 3rd drop and like 144 targets.
And that was a touchdown.
Yeah, well, that was a touchdown easily. They, get the interception. They stop. I mean, they didn't stop him on 3rd down. They get a couple stops, but even like I tweeted this out, or I said it to someone. Even when the Bears blocked the punt, they blocked it sideways so it went out of bounds instead of it going, like, obviously they can't control that, but that's just their luck.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes straight sideways out of bounds, like direct line out of bounds. Instead of rolling 15, 20 yards, you never know. You might get kicked, might get picked up. At least you have the ball. The Bears should score, but still, I honestly, man, I just think I go back to it. 3rd and 17, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8. What did the Vikings do on every one of those long? 2nd and 19 they had in that second half and still got the first time. What did the Vikings do? Did you notice anything they did? Because I noticed right away what they did.
It was a lot of pre-snap motion,
Yep.
and a lot of pushing the linebackers off the ball to open the middle of the field. I mean,
And a
it
lot of
was just
short passes.
exactly.
Yep.
And it was very there was a very stark difference between what the Bears were running on offense tonight and what the Vikings were running on offense tonight. And it was there was pointed out a few times on the national broadcast tonight as well. And that was specifically talking about how many times, and we saw this with Shane Waldron, and all of a sudden it came back like a bad dream, that there were several times where Bears receivers found themselves really bunched together on the same side of the field. We even saw it on a couple pass plays as well, that it appeared Keenan Allen stopped a ball that was headed towards Rome Odunze in the end zone, that
Yeah.
Keenan Allen thought it was for him, and it went off of his hands, and it was incomplete, and that was the end of that drive. And I actually think it might have been that drive that started at the goal line. So
Yeah.
again, numerous times it just looked like the offense didn't know what they were doing. The offensive line clearly not giving Caleb any time whatsoever to get the ball out on a consistent basis. I truly can't believe that the Vikings only had 2 sacks tonight. I mean, I look at that and the amount of pressures that the Vikings had on Caleb, and what seemed like just a constant barrage of pressure that the line was putting on him, that just doesn't add up to me at all.
And Troy Aikman said it in the game too. On after that play you mentioned with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, that there are too many players in the same area of where the routes are supposed to be. And that's not a Thomas Brown thing. That was happening with Shane Waldron. And like Thomas Brown said, he's not going to reinvent the wheel. It's too late in the season for him to fully install an offense. It's not the exact same thing as Shane Waldron. It's 98, 99. It's right there. You know what I mean? Like the stuff they're doing, a lot of it's the same because that's what they installed all off season. It's what they installed in training camp. It's what they installed during the season. So they're not really switching a lot of things up, which is a problem because, like you said, dude, Keenan Allen is right there with Roma Dunze. Last week in that game, there's a viral screenshot going around where there's 3 Bears within like 4 yards of each other, and there's 4 defenders. I don't know what's going on. The scheme is really bad. That's why I lean towards an offensive-minded head coach to help Caleb Williams. But overall, I mean, it was just from the start, it was a dumpster fire. And then I don't know if you noticed this, but I just retweeted this from Courtney Cronin. Did you notice that Jalen Johnson did not have his C patch on during the game? His captain's patch? It was not on his uniform.
Really?
He said in the locker room, according to Courtney Cronin, he was unaware that he did not have his captain's C on his jersey. He's one of 8 captains who's worn the C in every game, since he would need to talk to the Bears equipment manager, Tony Medlin, for an explanation. I mean, they're just, I think they forgot, which is, I mean, I think they would have told him if he wasn't a captain, right? You can't, if they did not tell him he was, I'll say it, if they did not tell him that he wasn't a captain and they went out and let him go out there without the C on his jersey, Ryan Poles has to be fired immediately. That just absolutely, I mean, that's very shady. You can say what you want about Jalen. That's a very shady way to do business.
And Aaron Lemming just now confirming, Thomas Brown confirms that Jalen Johnson is indeed still a captain. Sounds like a simple equipment mistake. So it's
almost worse.
The circus just continues. And again, you want to talk about one of the bright spots here tonight in Jalen and just what he was able to do. This was the stats on Justin Jefferson when Jalen Johnson was covering him. 16 routes, 1 target, 1 catch, 8 yards. That's it.
Same as when they played 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, is there a reason? And again, he did not have a good game outside of the touchdown. I think he had 1 catch, maybe 2 catches in the second half.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why he just didn't shadow him all over the field, or am I missing something? Yeah, Jordan Addison like kicked your butt last time you got together, but at the same time, if you know that's coming, and clearly the defensive side of the ball was lacking in many regards. We talked about the long third down conversions that just continued to plague the Bears defense here tonight. I just don't get what they were doing. And talking about the short throws, pushing the linebackers off in the middle of the field. The other thing that got me really confused, and it was a continuous thing that occurred on obvious passing downs, was when the Vikings were using pre-snap motion, bringing receivers across to the other side of the field. I think all but twice the entire night, nobody followed the receiver to the other side of the field. Not once. And I don't care if you are playing zone and not man, but when you clearly see 3 wide receivers set up to one side of the field and only 2 corners and a deep safety, you are asking the Vikings to take the easy yards, to set up with the blocker, and not make it a difficult decision to continue moving the ball down the field. I did not get that at all. And it just looked like the Bears defense just stopped communicating in that regard. And there was one point, I believe it was Kyler Gordon, where he pointed, it was TJ Hawkinson in motion in towards the left tackle. And he points in at him and he turns and he just kind of shrugs like no one's listening to him.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, I guess this is just going to happen. And I mean, again, we've talked on numerous occasions about the body language of many players on this team, but that was a telltale sign for me tonight that, yeah, there's been a lot of signs that these guys are mailing it in at this point in time, and losing by 18 points, clearly not great when you shot yourself in the foot. I don't even want to know what you want to put the over under at 4, 5, 6 times tonight.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's really, really bad.
Well, they tried to talk about and tried to explain it about Jalen. He's going to line up on Justin. When they send Justin in motion, he's not going to follow him, even if it's zone or man. It's just, unless it's man or something like that. To me, I want my best corner that I'm paying a lot of money on the best player on the field. The best player on the field is Justin Jefferson. The best corner on the field is probably Jalen Johnson for either team. I want that matchup. And honestly, like, look at the stats. Okay, you got Jefferson 7 for 73, a touchdown. Addison 6 for 63, no touchdowns. That drew that pass interference call. That wasn't awful. I mean, the Bears, compared to the last game, Jordan Addison's been on fire the last couple of weeks. So, I think Kyler Gordon played well. You didn't hear much of the slot for the Vikings. Looking at, I think, let's see, Naylor had 1 for 5. Powell had 1 for 12. Hawkinson got a couple, but he had a couple linebackers on him. I think Kyler was on Hawkinson on a couple plays. Kyler made some really good plays. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. TJ Edwards, I think, is playing fine. He's playing, he's trying hard and stuff. And I think a lot of the guys are, but there's just lack of talent. Maybe some motivation, missing Gervon Dexter offensively, missing starting left tackle. It's bad, man. 8 straight losses. I think the Giants have 9. The Raiders have 10 straight losses. They're picking 1 and 2. The Bears are picking 9 right now.
Isn't that crazy that we're 8 straight losses?
Yeah,
and they're picking 9th.
Well, you're 4 and 2. You lose 8 straight. You haven't won in the United States since what, October? Like early October. I think they won. It was the last game they won in the United States. It's all downhill, man. It's those 13 yards don't matter. After that, the whole season mattered, and it's just a nightmare. And looking at this, I mean, to me, this was the game. I mean, if these numbers are flipped, the Bears probably win this game. On third down, the Bears were 1 of 12, 8%. Fourth down, 1 of 3, 33%. And that was a touchdown. Red zone, 1 of 3, 33%. You flip it over to Minnesota. Vikings 50%, 7 of 14 on third down. Fourth down, 0 for 1. And then that was the interception. Red zone, 3 for 4, 75%. Goal to goal, 3 for 3, 100%. The net yards really wasn't terrible. The Bears 284, the Vikings 329. Obviously, you want a little better from the Bears, but they both averaged 4.5 yards a gain for the Bears, 4.6 yards a gain for the Vikings, 113 rushing, 114 rushing for the Vikings. Passing, I mean, you look sacks. Both teams had 2 sacks. Both averaged 5 yards of completion. And Darnold had 16 incompletions. Caleb had 13. That's the game right there. I mean, your game is the third downs, the fourth downs. Penalties were, Bears 9 for 93, Vikings 10 for 56. Like, a lot of these numbers are pretty solid and pretty close. Like, except for the third downs and fourth downs, and that was right away. Your first drive, first down. Or fourth down, can't get it. Another drive deep inside Vikings territory, can't get it. There you go. Minnesota completing 3rd and 17s, converting 3rd and 17s, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 9. It was like that drive. It's like they picked up right off that drive in overtime in the first meeting where they had 3 third down conversions. They're doing the same thing. Just pitching out there in Jones and hitting, Justin Jefferson over the middle, hitting Jordan Addison over the middle. It's a tale of a really coached team and a tale of a poorly coached team in my eyes. And that's nothing against Thomas Brown. He's an interim,
Right. And again, it seems as though, bright side of things, it's going to be a very significantly easy decision for the Bears to move on from this. I mean, there's not much occurring that's going to give the Bears pause to whether or not Thomas Brown is the guy, because clearly at this point we're talking about an even further regression than we saw under Matt Eberflus, which is saying something. I mean, that in itself is saying a lot.
And I think that defensively, Matt Eberflus could keep them in games for the most part defensively.
Yeah.
And the in-game stuff was where he was just really, really bad.
Right. And but to that extent, the fact that we're sitting here with, I guess, more frustrations. Again, they just keep piling up. I think a lot of folks were under the impression that moving on from Matt Eberflus was the correct call. Whether it was now, whether it was, in a month, on Black Monday, it was the correct call. But now, seeing where the team has gone since then, I think it adds more pause to the situation that what specifically needs to be done to turn this around. I think that I feel like there's more now. It's not just the coaching. We clearly know that, building the trenches has been something that has largely been ignored outside of the drafting of Darnell Wright and trading for Montez Sweat. There needs to be additions there. Point blank, I don't think anybody would disagree with that, whether it is through the draft, whether it is utilizing the cap money that they are currently sitting sixth most heading into the offseason. If things stand as they are, obviously cuts can change things as they move along. There are a couple cut candidates this year for the Bears. But now I'm thinking to myself, I truly don't know where they should go with trying to fix this from a talent perspective. Obviously, offensive line is, I think, going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists, but we're seeing, again, defensive end. Walker had a fantastic game tonight. He played out of his mind.
Where was this all year?
I wish I knew. And I mean, you look at his stat line, you think, okay, well, he really didn't do that much tonight. He didn't have a sack. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. But he was constantly in the backfield. He was constantly making his presence known. But I think one of the shocking things that I saw, I think the Bears are fourth in the NFL in pressure rate this year. I never would have expected that to even sniff the top 10. Just based on the way that this defensive line is currently built, the injuries that have been dealt with. They're clearly missing a star defensive end, to get after the pass rush, to put it opposite of Sweat. That big run stuffer in the middle. I think Javon Dexter, a lot of people were expecting a significant leap. Probably saw about 50% of what I think a lot of people were hoping for this year. And then Andrew Billings getting injured, obviously throwing a giant wrench into the situation as well for the year. But now I think there's additional questions that need to come up specifically to the secondary and the safety position, because I'm not really sure Jaquan Brisker is going to be back next year. Something tells me there's way too much going on to be fully confident with whatever this lingering concussion is. I'm trying to remember the last time I've heard of a concussion lasting this long.
Yeah,
or if it truly is just this internal struggle over, well, I don't want to play or I want to play, and the team saying vice versa, and it turning into another dramatic saga at Hallis Hall, as if there haven't been enough of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with the previous regime. It's hard to really say. Yeah, I mean, I'd still draft a safety or look at a safety, at least in the next draft or free agency maybe. It's just tough, man. Like this game was just, it wasn't as frustrating for me because looking at it, like this is what it is. I mean, when you fired Matt Eberflus, which was the right call, you knew the cupboard was bare. Like you knew it. I mean, people had hope for Thomas Brown. That was wiped away in the first quarter of last week's game. But yeah, I mean, it's not as frustrating for me. It's more of, okay, like here we are again. It is December 16th. It's week 15. It's late in the season. The Bears are eliminated from the playoffs. We are getting the camera shots of Ryan Poles staring down on the field or staring at his phone. We're getting George McCaskey camera shots. This happens way too often. The Bears are in a losing season. They're going to have a change at head coach. Might have a change at GM. This happens way too often since 2000, since they fired Lovie Smith. Even without the changes last year, you saw Ryan Poles. They showed him they showed camera shots of him in Green Bay in that final game. The year before, historic losing streak. He might have 2 10-game losing streaks in 3 seasons.
Make it 11. I at this point, I don't see how. Maybe because Geno Smith doesn't play next week. The Bears actually have a shot because Sam Howell doesn't look good.
Yeah,
that might be the only thing that keeps the Chicago Bears from being a 4-13 team, rather than a 5-12 team versus a 4-13 team.
Here's also the thing. Like, I don't think if the Bears win a game, I'm not going to be mad because I don't think the draft pick. No, it doesn't matter. They're not bad enough to get top 3. And I feel like the higher the pick is, the more pressure on Ryan Poles if he stays.
And here's the struggle with where the Bears currently are. Again, on Tankathon, they are 9th overall right now at 4-10. This is what's causing them to kind of be in this draft pick limbo. It's the strength of schedule. With the way strength of schedule works out, it is fully reversible. So the weaker the schedule, the higher the seed on tied teams, and unless there is a head-to-head tiebreaker. But the thing here is, so you have the Bears at 4-10 and the Jets at 4-10. The Bears right now have a 559 strength of schedule. That is easily tops in the top 10 of the NFL draft. If the season were to end today, I believe it might actually be the second most difficult schedule overall, just behind San Francisco at 567. So here's the thing. Let's say they lose out. You have Cleveland, Tennessee, Carolina, Jacksonville, and New England all at 3-11. Every single one of them has a weaker strength of schedule. And so now you have Carolina, who you beat, Jacksonville, who you beat, New England, who you're going to jump, thankfully, if it gets to that point. But still, you're talking about, okay, you lose out. You have to hope that these teams in front of you, again, Cleveland, Tennessee, Carolina, Jacksonville, New England, win 2 of their last 3 games. It's not going to happen.
New England has Buffalo twice. And the Chargers.
It's not going to happen. None of this is going to happen. The Jets maybe will win one more game. They actually showed some life yesterday.
Well, I don't know, man. They got Rams, Buffalo, and Miami. And Miami very well could be playing for a playoff spot. And I mean, the Bills should be playing the rest of the year. There's still a chance they could get a top seed, and they're in a spot where, I mean, they want to be number 2. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't, just in case the Chiefs lose a game. I mean, I think this is the highest the Bears are going to go. Like Cleveland, who do they got? They got Cincinnati. They could win that. But they got Miami and then Baltimore. I don't know. I don't think any of these teams are going to jump the Bears.
No.
Maybe Tennessee. Indianapolis and Jacksonville. I don't know. That's
tough. It's tough. you feel as though there is hope to what could potentially be here, but in the grand scheme of things, it I don't think it would be a shock to much of anybody if they just get locked in right there at 9 and that's it. And so then you have to turn your attention here to, who's going to be in that range.
Yeah.
Again, probably looking at, and thankfully there's some decent edge rushers and some tackles and some interior linemen in that area. You got Will Campbell from LSU, you have Kelvin Banks from Texas. Could even go
Ron
for
Walker.
you could go for Michael Williams from Georgia if
Yeah.
you're looking for that edge player. So I mean, there's a lot of guys in that range. Or hell,
Yeah. Well,
maybe they'll shock everybody and they'll go Ashton Jeanty.
I was just gonna
And
say. I mean, he's not. He'll be there. He'll be there at 9 or 10.
he will be there. Yeah,
I'd be
and
shocked if he wasn't.
yeah, it's I mean he's a hell of a player, and honestly,
But that's
whether yeah,
that can't be Ryan Poles' pick. That cannot. That if that's a new GM, I understand it a little bit. If that's Ryan Poles' pick, I mean, do you fire him right after the draft? Like, what? I mean, you can't make that pick. Ryan Poles cannot make that pick at 10 or 11, especially with how this offensive line is. That's that. Like, I think it'd still be shocking if they hired another GM and he picked Genty. Like, I'd be shocked still. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, that'd be. Could you imagine Ryan Poles passing up on a tackle or an edge? And
yes.
yeah, it's. I mean,
but here's the thing. Let's say he takes care of the offensive line through free agency. He buys the sure things. I hate saying it, but I could see him doing it. And,
yeah, but
and
what's the
funny.
sure? Like,
I
don't know.
I'm looking at Twitter right now. Just entering the top 10 is fire Ryan Poles in trending topics.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So Twitter's in a dumpster fire.
I mean, his seat has to be warm. I mean, I didn't think a couple weeks ago it was a decision at all. I think you give him a chance, but these are games now where you're not looking at Thomas Brown. Like we would say those stats. Well, Matt Eberflus is 13-30 as a head coach. So was Ryan Poles. Now you can't say that about Matt Eberflus. I mean, his record is what it is. Ryan Poles is adding more losses. And this is a game where you look, Ryan Poles drafted Kieran Amagaji in the 3rd round. Ryan Poles drafted Zack Pickens in the 3rd round. Ryan Poles drafted Velus Jones in the 3rd round.
So I'm going to go down this list of things that was just posted. Larry Ogunjobi failed signing.
Yep.
Nate Davis signing.
Yep.
Tyler Scott, Velus Jones, Ryan Bates, Coleman Shelton, Gerald Everett, Zack Pickens, obviously keeping Flus a big part of it as well.
Chase Claypool.
Oh gosh.
What's the worst one on that list, would you say?
Oh God. You're gonna torture me this way?
Yeah, I'll give you mine. Mine's easy. Mine's not even a second thought. First one that came to my head.
Nate Davis.
No, keeping Matt Eberflus last year.
I'm not gonna.
That's the biggest one in my opinion.
I don't know. I go back and forth with that one. I just feel as though there's been a lot of dollars thrown at some of these guys that clearly did not really they just should never have gotten it. And that
I agree.
is and that's the frustrating thing is you look at these are the ways that he has tried to fix said trenches. And
yes.
Clearly it's not working, and it's getting to a point where you're literally rivaling David Carr rookie sack numbers, which are just ungodly when it comes to what they're doing with Caleb Williams right now and allowing him to get hit as much as he has been getting hit. And it's getting progressively worse. And so I think that, it's a situation where, man, the more you read the names and the more you kind of go through that fear of just reliving all of this, I don't know I truly don't know what he's going to do this offseason if he's given that opportunity.
Well, his first thing should be hiring Ben Johnson. He should be trying to sign Trey Smith because Garrett Bowles got re-signed. He's off the board.
Yep.
I don't know. I only say it's Eberflus because I look at it this way. Nate Davis was a bad signing. If people on Twitter knew that Mike Vrabel didn't like Nate Davis, how did Ryan Poles not know that? You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of the thing going around Twitter was like, Mike Vrabel's not a fan of Nate Davis because of the work ethic. And how did Ryan Poles not see that? I don't know. But does Nate Davis even playing at a competent level fix everything? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. But does firing Matt Eberflus fix things? I don't know, man. I just think watching them last year and watch them how they lost to the Chiefs, how they lost the Broncos, a team that gave up 81 points the week before, how they blew a game against the Lions. There's another one definitely in there that they blew. Can't think of who it was, but they definitely lost another game late. They beat a bunch of bad, Cleveland. They beat a bunch of bad teams at the end last year. They beat the Falcons. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Vikings. They did not score a single touchdown against Green Bay in a game where Dan Campbell's coaching that team. The Bears are making sure the Packers are not going to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I hate to be that meatball, but like I just remember, I remember it vividly too, just sitting there that week leading up to it. It was just kind of like talking to players, talking to the coaches. It's kind of like, it was just coach speak. It was player speak where it was like, yeah, we want to win, playoffs, we're out of it, but it would be fun to spoil it. But like, no one gave the quote, like, yeah, we want these assholes out of the playoffs. Where you heard like Detroit, that's all they were talking. I mean, Dan Campbell was asked 100 times that week, you guys could be eliminated from the playoffs before you even kick off. I'm not benching my starters. I'm going for it. I want to keep them out of the playoffs. Matty Eberflus and Ryan Poles were content with scoring 9 points against Green Bay on the road and letting them go to the playoffs. To me, I just, and it's the whole process of it too. I'll admit I was not a Jim Harbaugh guy. I didn't want him with the Bears, but the reasoning why they didn't even bring him in he's the head coach of Michigan is insane. Like, that was crazy. Like, how they played that off was just, I don't know. I think keeping Eberflus was Ryan Poles' biggest mistake because you had a chance to reset everything. And, they just, I don't know who they would have hired. I don't know who they would have hired though. Like,
it's I just feel like at this point, what are they not going to screw up? And I think for a lot of people, it's now a mentality of prove me wrong. Because again, like you mentioned, we've seen this far too often since Lovie Smith was, let go after that 10-6 season, and it's just been a revolving door ever since. Where there just does not seem to be a firm understanding of the type of coach that needs to be in Hallis Hall leading this team and the makeup of this team to take them to that next level. And again, this is the struggle, and it's you have a GM right now who has, for all resume purposes, had his butt saved by trading the number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers for a king's ransom, and now you are significantly in danger of endangering that and the players involved in that deal if you're not able to make the correct moves to properly protect your franchise quarterback and to help develop those other players that you drafted. primarily your right tackle of the future that I think a lot of people were hoping would be here for the next 10 years, providing solid coverage for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And then you have Stevenson, who has regressed exponentially this year to a point where you have to wonder what his role on this team is moving forward, and the amount of just sheer immaturity he has showed on a week-to-week basis, specifically after that Washington Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot to unpack, and I don't necessarily know if a new coach is going to fix all of that. Maybe they will. You get the right guy in there, you get a leader in there that the players are going to listen to, they're going to rally behind. Yeah, maybe it will. But at the same time, I think there's a lot that goes deeper than just that. And I'm not necessarily sure that it's the right makeup of the front office to make those decisions correctly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. Do you trust them? Do you trust Ryan Poles to get a higher number one? I mean, it's not only draft. It's do you trust Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren to hire the right guy for this job? Do you trust them to sit in and hire the right offensive coordinator or provide any notes, defensive coordinator? Because Ryan Poles was in that meeting with Shane Waldron, and he's co-signed on it.
And it's not just this. And I get they were Matt Eberflus's guys.
Yeah, but he co-signed.
Well, exactly. You have Matt Waldron. You have was it Alec Williams?
Alan Williams, yeah.
Alan Williams last year, and
Running
the
back
debacle, the rumors that went on about that, about what was going on. Yeah, the running backs coach. I mean, there were just all these situations that just made you raise an eyebrow and thinking, what is going on? I mean, it's just a pure circus, and there didn't really ever seem to be firm answers. It was, again, this beat around the bush mentality that has existed at Hallis Hall for years, if not decades, where it's like they want to treat everybody like they're stupid and they don't see what's going on. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yep.
And Here we are yet again.
Yep. And the more that comes out, literally, the more that comes out as we learn, it's okay. How did you sit through that Shane Waldron? There was no communication. How'd you allow that to happen? The more we find out about that stuff, it's just crazy.
Right.
But do you trust them to make the draft picks? Do you trust them to sign free agents? Because if you bring him back and he fails, now you're going to have a head coach with a new GM. It's the same thing over and over again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you're going to have the same head coach. Hopefully, you're going to have a new GM, or you're going to, try to get a new GM this year and pair him up with the head coach. It's a big decision, man. And I don't know what they're going to do, but they have to get this right. But yeah.
It's
3 more of these to go.
Yeah, it gives you pause, especially when you hear from other reports around the league that you have the Jets starting their GM search this week. Like, they're not wasting any time. They're bringing people in. They're getting ready to go. They understand the assignment. And that's another franchise up there that a lot of folks would also call dysfunctional based on the way that everything is built from the owner all the way down. And it appears that they're more than willing to try and figure this out and do it right the first time versus this vicious cycle that they've also found themselves through. And so, again, seeing one team break out of it and make the correct moves and clean house. And like you said, for whatever reason, there seems to be, at least from a media perception perspective, that there is confidence in Ryan Poles to do this. The chips are stacking against him. The odds are not good for what his hit rate has been. Man, it gives me a lot of fear over these next couple of weeks. It truly does. And again, we're even talking about a situation that could easily stretch out all the way to the end of January. If the Lions make a deep playoff run, we're not talking about Ben Johnson coming in for interviews or doing any of this other stuff until maybe even February. And what happens if he has a change of heart late?
Well,
And says, you know what, this isn't the job for me. I'm staying in Detroit. And the Bears end up wasting weeks in trying to figure out who that next coach is. Like that's another fear that I have, because frankly, going over that list of players, there have been several situations that have not gone smoothly for Ryan Poles. Why not this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's tough. And so I was looking on Twitter. Someone pointed out, they cut the fullback too. They cut Gary Blasingame.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the Doug Kramer experiment, a fumble at the goal line, and now this. I mean, that's 12 points, 14 with the extra points off the board. Yeah, they got an issue. How did this all fall up? I mean, it all fell apart so quick, man. And like you said, if they want Ben Johnson, not only do you maybe have to wait, and other teams got a head start, but what if he wants to bring in his guy at GM? Or what if he wants a GM? You know what I mean? Like, what if he wants someone at GM? What if he doesn't like how the structure is with the Bears? You might be scraping at the bottom of the barrel, man. You might be,
right.
Yeah. Oh, we'll figure all that out in a couple of weeks, I guess. Maybe the Lions will lose early.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Philly looks pretty good, and don't count the Vikings. I mean, the Lions are banged up. The Vikings, they went out, man. They got the NFC North. So
yeah, it's wild to think that. I mean, the Lions game on Sunday against the Bills was very exciting to watch. But yeah, that's a team that is dealing with a very fair share of injuries, to say the least. So you got in Chicago, obviously. So Bears Lions in week 16 coming up here at Soldier Field, and then a Monday night showdown against the San Francisco 49ers on December 30th, and then against Minnesota. That could easily be for the division right there, and it's going to be a heck of a game. We could be talking about Sunday Night Football, the finale of the regular season, being Lions versus Vikings, and I'm here for it. I would love to see it. I think that there would be a lot of entertainment there in that matchup. Two very good teams, and if we'll see if the Lions can weather the storm. I don't think they're going to have much issue weathering the storm on Sunday, but for all we know, we could be in for a big surprise.
Well, I mean, dude, the Lions, Packers, and Vikings are all going to the playoffs, and they're all going to have over 10 wins.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
and honestly, they'll be 3 of the 4 best records in the NFC. They won't have home playoff games, right? Yeah. I mean, who else?
Well,
the Eagles are the only other team.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, because the seeding is because of the divisions, but
right.
I mean, the Lions 12 wins, the Vikings 12 wins, Eagles 12 wins. I guess the Bucks. Well, the Bucks have 2 less wins than the Packers.
Yeah, the Bucks are 8-6. The Rams are 8-6. Those are your other 2 division winners. Yeah, the Commanders are 9-5.
Yeah.
And I believe the Commanders already. Yeah, they already played the Packers this year, didn't they?
No, they don't play
the Packers.
No,
they didn't play the Packers. No. Yeah. So yeah, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys for the Commanders. So I mean, that's not necessarily a walk in the park either, given that the Eagles are fighting the Lions. We want to talk about the Vikings being 12-2, the Eagles 12-2. That's going to go down to the wire. For all we know, the Eagles are just going to swoop in and take care of business altogether, and they're going to be the
Eagles Bills, man. That's my Super Bowl prediction. Eagles Bills.
Yeah, it's a lot to be said. Again, the first time in a very long time that half of the NFL's playoff teams are already locked up with 3 weeks to go. It shows you that that divide there between the bad and the good, and there is a lot of bad, and unfortunately the Bears are a part of it. And 8 straight losses, potential of 11 if things go as south as they possibly can go by season's end. And That's it's rough. It's
Yeah.
rough, but hey, we're here. We're going to talk about it somehow, some way. I just have no idea how many more different ways they can shoot themselves in the foot next week. I truly don't.
It's all the same now. It's all going to blur together next year. We'll all be talking about it. Yep. And those final games. Yep. How it's fallen.
Oh, never a dull moment, that is for sure. Finding all of these different ways. But hey, hopefully the bumps this year, rising to the top starting next year, we'll can only hope at this point in time. But that's going to do it here for the post-game recap here for the Bear Report. We appreciate all of you hanging out with us here this evening and tuning in late night on this Monday. Again, 30-12, the Vikings take down the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football here in Week 15. We will talk to you next week following the noon showdown between the Bears and the Lions at Soldier Field. For Zack Pearson, I'm Steven Johnson. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.